Namaste and welcome to our continuing series, The Life Divine with Rangada. Namaste. And we are on the chapter Indeterminates, Cosmic Determinations, and the Indeterminable. We are on page number 316, the second paragraph. This opens the way.
For other explanations. We are meeting only once a week, so we have to give the reference of what we are discussing. Otherwise, it's highly abstract. Okay. So, the chapter is the indeterminations and determinations. So when we use the word determination in this context, it means features, having features like color, shape, size. You can describe something. So that which is describable has got determinations. That's the we have to understand in that way. That which is indeterminate is that which has no features and you can't describe easily. So the good example is to take the seed and the tree. Okay, the seed is the if you open up the seed and look into it in detail, you will not see any features in it. It's a blankness. Okay, it's like you won't see flowers, fruits, and bark and leaves in it, twigs and branches. You won't see roots, but it has still the capacity to produce all these things. So you can say the seed is the indeterminate and it is producing all the determinations. A leaf, I can describe its shape, color, size, weight, I can describe. I can describe the fruit. So that which is indeterminate slowly starts making determinations and it goes on infinitely. This is the chapter. We gave one example of how life, which is a principle, okay, expresses itself in two ways, vertebrates and invertebrates. Then invertebrates divides itself into 5 classes, 8 classes, maybe now even more perhaps. When I was at school, it was 8 classes. And when you have the vertebrates, it divides into 5 classes: birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, things like that. And again, each one again starts making different classifications. So this is the chapter. So he is saying, he has discussed here, he says that there is nothing to explain how that one seed can produce flowers and fruits and trees. You don't see any connection between them. This is one mystery. Also, but you see that there is a process and a law that happens. The seed of a mango tree will produce only a mango tree. It will not produce anything else. Therefore, there is a law that is operating. Okay, it will not produce anything else. There is a law that operates. So there is law, and yet you see that there is an element of freedom, because when, for instance, a dog gives birth to puppies, there are so many different types. It's not only one type. So there is a free element in the process of creation, and there is also a law, and they are opposites. So this is the problem. So what is the ultimate? This is the problem that it has to solve. Okay, so I've given you the context. Now I'll read out to you what he's saying in the previous para. Then we'll read the para that is to be read today. Okay, he's saying, science indeed sees the process of things and utilizes them, but without understanding the essential reality. Okay, we know horticulture, agriculture, we know how to use these things. We know also how to, if you want meat, you have farms where you have either chicken or you have even pigs, cattle. So you know how to do it, okay? But you don't know how it is producing all these things. How the one indeterminate produces determinations. So science is utilizing the process but without understanding. It sees that there is a free variation, a seeming chance, a random production of innumerable forms. But again, it sees a fixity, a law operating everywhere. And the law and are opposites. So we have a problem. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Then, I'll continue to read the summary. The summary is not there. This is the summary which I have made. So you will not find it in the book. Okay? So, then he says, but again it sees a fixity, a law operating everywhere. Chance and law, both jostling together, exist in the physical world. Even more surprising is the emergence of consciousness from the inconscient. How can matter produce life? You don't see any sign of life in matter, and yet it produces from the inconscient. Consciousness is coming out. Could consciousness be inherent in the so-called inconscient? So that raises a question. Just like the mango tree is there in the seed, in the inconscient, is there a consciousness hiding? That's what he's asking. Okay? So this is what he said in the previous one. Now, we go to the next para. Okay? So, he's trying to find a solution to the problem. This opens the way, I'm reading the next para. This opens the way for other explanations which make consciousness the creator of the world, of this world, out of an apparent original inconscience. Okay? So now he's saying we could consider that consciousness is creating the world out of an apparent original inconscience. A mind, MCAP, a will. Mind is and will. Okay? Mind corresponds to knowledge, will corresponds to force. Seems to have imagined and organized the universe, but it has veiled itself behind its creation. Okay? You don't see mind nor you see a will in the physical world. Okay? It seems to be hiding somewhere. If this solution that we are looking for is consciousness which is producing, I can start with that. I am trying to find a solution to the problem. What is creating? Is it force or is it consciousness? There is law and there is chance, freedom. So he is examining the possibility of consciousness being the creator of the world. But I don't see consciousness anywhere. Is it possible that it is hiding in that which it has created? Is the question he is asking. A mind, a will, seems to have imagined and organized the universe, but it has veiled itself behind its creation. Its first erection has been the screen of an inconscient energy and material form of substance, at once a disguise of its presence and a plastic creative basis on which it could work as an artisan uses for his production of forms and patterns, a dumb and obedient material. So, consciousness has created matter, and matter is a substance with which he is going to create forms. Just like he is saying, an artisan, okay, he creates, uses for the production of forms and patterns, a dumb and obedient material. A carpenter is using wood. A sculptor is using a stone. A potter is using mud. Okay? So this is the substance. Now Srinath is saying the divine is created not wood, not mud, not stone, but material form of substance. Substance can be very subtle. It can also be more gross. It can be the grossest. And the grossest is matter. Okay? So the divine creates a substance and then he is using this to create the forms that he wants. He is examining the possibility. Okay? So all these things we see around us are then the thoughts of an extra cosmic divinity. If we start from the theory that consciousness has created the world, in that case we have to say that everything that we see in the physical world, since it is consciousness that is creating the world, they are the thoughts of an extra cosmic divinity. A divine who is standing outside the universe creates the universe, and these are the thoughts that he had. Okay? It's a very interesting way of putting it, but exactly like an artist, okay, or an architect. An architect first has a thought in his mind. Okay? I am going to build the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal was first a concept in the mind, and then it became a reality. So this is also what he's saying. Okay, he's saying all these things that we see around us are then the thoughts of a extra cosmic divinity, a plan in the mind, the divine mind, a being with an omnipotent and omniscient mind and will, who is responsible for the mathematical law of the physical universe, for its artistry of beauty, for its strange play of sameness and variations, of concordances and discords, of combining and intermingling opposites, for the drama of consciousness struggling to exist and seeking to affirm itself in an inconscient universal order. So, if we start with the theory that consciousness is creating, what do we end up with? That's what he's looking at. Okay, we end up with the fact logically that just as a poem is a concept in the mind of the poet and then he puts it down on paper, okay, exactly in the same way, divine has created the cosmos, and I am examining the possibility that consciousness and will have produced the universe. In that case, all the forms that you see are only God's thoughts. Okay.
Like
So-
in the plant life, you see incredible amount of symmetry and precision. And there is, I think, so the Fibonacci sequence, which is very common.
He's talking about the mathematics.
Mathematics,
Yes. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. Actually, more there are all sorts of things like that. There is the shell, okay? The what do you call the seashell, the pattern that goes up. That is more the
The Fibonacci sequence, yes.
yeah. Okay. So he's saying that then we can explain both. We can explain the mathematical law as well as the and he's saying since it's a thought in the mind of God, it has got so many aspects. It is first of all omnipotent and omniscient mind who is responsible for the mathematical law of the physical universe. Everything seems to follow a law. For its even genetics is follow the law. Okay, who is the fellow who discovered the law of genetics? What was his name? I've forgotten. But he studied how genetics comes. Okay, there's a law that operates. Okay, then, and he's saying it's not only production of forms. These forms are artistry of beauty and strange play of sameness and variations. The sameness is the law, and the variations is the chance, the freedom aspect of concordances and discords. These are the dualities you see in the physical world of combining and intermingling opposites. Okay, there's so many things combine and intermingle. He has given the example of oxygen and hydrogen mixing and producing water. In water, there is no sign of oxygen and no sign of hydrogen, yet that's the result. So this is the mystery that he is trying to find out. Okay, so of combining and intermingling opposites. Okay. In fact, everything in the physical world is intermingling of opposites. Okay. For the drama of consciousness struggling to exist and seeking to affirm itself in an inconscient universal order. The drama of consciousness struggling to exist is all life on earth is bound to death. Okay. It is producing life, but it is invariably linked with death. And that's a struggle for, he's saying it's a, first of all, he has told you that it's the opposites, intermingling of opposites. So wherever there is life, there is bound to be death here. Okay. Then there is, wherever there is truth, there is bound to be falsehood. And intermingling. Okay. So with an omnipotent and omniscient combining and intermingling opposites for the drama of consciousness. Okay. When you really look at it, consciousness producing all these things is a drama. All nature is a drama, a tremendous drama. Okay, so struggling to exist and seeking to affirm itself in an inconscient universal order. Inconscient universal order, the material world, the matter. Okay. The fact that this divinity is invisible to us, undiscoverable by our mind, and senses offers no difficulty, since self-evidence or direct sign of an extra cosmic creator could not be expected in a cosmos which is void of his presence. Okay? We'll come back to it. It's a very interesting thing he's saying. The patent signals everywhere of the works of an intelligence, of law, design, formula, adaptation of means to ends, constant and inexhaustible invention, fantasy even, but restrained by an ordering reason, might be considered sufficient proof of this origin of things. I think I'll finish the para and then we'll come back to it. It's fantastic what he's saying, very interesting. Or if this creator is not entirely supracosmic, okay, he's talking of the extra cosmic divine, okay, or if this creator, because he is examining the possibilities, na? So he's saying, if someone objects and says, this, no, you don't need to think of God who is omnipotent and all that. Could there be another creator? In fact, science is saying matter is creating. There's no God. Okay, so he's examining that now. He says, or if this creator is not entirely supracosmic, but is also immanent in his works. Okay, that means it is involved in matter and creating from there. Even there need be no other sign of him, except indeed to some consciousness evolving in this inconscient world, but only when its evolution reached a point at which it could become aware of the indwelling presence. So, this consciousness which you don't see, I started with the theory that consciousness is producing. But where is it producing? I don't see it in matter. But is it possible that this consciousness which is producing forms, at one stage, this consciousness will produce a form which becomes conscious of itself? That's what he's saying. Okay? In fact, we see that in the physical world. The animal becomes semi-conscious. Man becomes more conscious. A yogi becomes even more conscious. So that's what he's saying. Okay, he's examining that. But also immanent his works. Even then, there need be no other sign of him, except indeed to some consciousness evolving in this inconscient world, but only when its evolution reached a point at which it could become aware of the indwelling presence. The intervention of this evolving consciousness would not be a difficulty, since there would be no contradiction of the basic nature of things in its appearance. An omnipotent mind could easily infuse something of itself into its creatures. So, an omnipotent mind, which is a creator, could put something of itself into, because it's omnipotent, into what it is creating, it puts a little bit of itself into it. Okay. One difficulty remains. It is the arbitrary nature of creation, the incomprehensibility of its purpose, the crude meaninglessness of its law of unnecessary ignorance, strife, suffering, its ending without a denouement or issue. Then, could the explanation be a play? Is it a play? But, so yeah, a play, he is examining. Could it be a play without denouement or an issue? That means there's no climax and there's no ending which is satisfactory. Could it be a play? But why this stamp of so many undivine elements? Because I've started with the theory that a divine consciousness has produced this. So then why undivine elements are coming in? There's a problem. I have to explain that. But why this stamp of so many undivine elements and characters in the play of one whose nature must be supposed to be divine? How can the divine, who is creating things, create something opposite to himself? To the suggestion that we see worked out in the world is the thoughts of God, the retort can be made that God could have had better thoughts, and the best thought of all would have been to refrain from the creation of an unhappy and unintelligible universe. So they're having a bit of fun. Okay? All theistic explanations, all explanations basing themselves on God, theistic, of existence, starting from an extra cosmic deity, stumble over this difficulty and can only evade it. It would disappear only if the Creator were, even though exceeding the creation, yet immanent in it, himself in some sort both the player and the play, the infinite casting infinite possibilities into the form of an evolutionary cosmic order. So, a highly interesting paragraph. We'll look at it in detail. It is tremendously interesting. So, what's he doing in this para? He's saying, I'm seeing, yeah. So, I'm seeing that there is law and there is also a chance. Both are there and they seem to be opposite. There is a law. A dog is producing only a dog, but at the same time is producing different types of dogs. And there is a variation also. So there is fixity and there is freedom. This again takes you back to the idea of also fate and freedom. But it's related to this. But anyway, so he's saying, let us look at the theory that a consciousness is creating this. This whole paragraph is, he's looking at the consciousness creating the universe, and then he is raising himself objections to it later on. So this is always his process. He says, let's examine this possibility, and what are the objections to it? We'll meet the objections. I read each para now. We have seen basically what he's saying, that this consciousness is divine consciousness which is producing this, okay, which is producing the universe. This opens the way for other explanations which make consciousness the creator of the world. So this is what is going to examine now. Creator of the world out of an apparent original inconscience. The theory, consciousness, mind and will seems to have imagined and organized the universe, but it has veiled itself behind its creation. So I am saying that consciousness, I am examining the theory that a consciousness has created the world, okay, and that consciousness has got a mind and a will, seems to have imagined and organized the universe, but it has veiled itself behind the creation, okay. That means it is it's like also afterwards also the same thing is there. When you go into an exhibition hall, okay, you see a huge number of paintings, but you don't see the painter. So that's what he's saying. It doesn't matter. Okay? He's saying it doesn't matter. It's the same. The painter can be discovered later on. Okay? The creator can be discovered. A mind and a will seems to have imagined and organized the universe, but it has veiled itself behind the creation.
Like there is a line in Savitri, all the world's possibilities await in man as the tree waits in the seed.
That's the indeterminate, which produces determinations. That's what it means.
So, in that line, the indeterminate would be all the possibilities that are waiting to
all manifest. The possibilities are the determinates.
Okay, all.
And the one that is creating the possibility is the indeterminate.
Right.
So, then he says, just as an artist uses the production of forms and patterns a dumb and obedient material. A sculptor is using a dumb and inconscient stone. A carpenter, as I told you, is using wood, okay, and the potter is using porcelain, okay, what is it called?
Clay.
Clay. He is using clay. So what's the divine using as a material? He is using substance which has become material substance. Okay. So actually it is subtle, but he is using this to create everything. Okay. Now, all these things we see around us are then the thoughts of an extra cosmic deity. Just like a poem is in the mind first, and it's a thought in the mind and it creates it. Just like an architect wants to create a building, first he has a plan in his head and then he makes it a reality. So the universe is a thought in the mind of God. He is not using the word God, he is saying consciousness, which is a mind and a will. And that is creating so all the things that you see in the physical world are only thoughts in the mind of God.
But I've read in future poetry, for poetry, he says it always comes above the mind or from the soul vision.
It comes from many sources.
Many sources.
That depends on the individual. It can come from the inner being, it can come from the inner vital, it can come from the vital world, it can come from higher mind, overmind, intuitive mind, it can come from overmind, it can come from supermind. That's a different thing altogether, yeah. Here the problem he is discussing is quite different. Okay.
Right.
So here he is discussing what is creating, how to explain this diversity and freedom at the same time. So he started with consciousness, which is a mind and a will. So we read the next one. Okay. So, or if this creator is not entirely supracosmic, but is also immanent in his works, even then there need be no other sign of him. So, I've imagined a divine mind and a divine will which has created the universe. But suppose it is not, he's saying, is not entirely supracosmic. He is there in the cosmos also, okay? But is also immanent in his works. Even then there will be no other sign of him. Okay? You don't need to see the artist, you see the products of the artist. Except indeed to some consciousness evolving in this inconscient world, but only when its evolution reaches a point at which it could become aware of the indwelling presence. So, the creator has hidden himself in the matter that he has created, but he is evolving because it's a consciousness. Slowly, consciousness is rising. When do you become conscious of the creator? A time comes when you become conscious of the creator. So in our yoga, that's exactly what you're doing. You become conscious that there is a soul and a divine. So when that is there, matter itself has produced this, and you come to a certain stage, the yogic stage, where you realize that the creator is God. Okay? So the intervention of this evolving consciousness would not be a difficulty, since there would be no contradiction of the basic nature of things in its appearance. Okay? So, an omnipotent mind could easily infuse something of itself into its creatures. So, first of all, this conscious mind has created matter and is hiding himself in it, and is also evolving with that. Okay? That's what Simon is saying. So, and when he is creating something of him also goes into that. The language is a little complicated because he is saying, I am examining the possibility. But in other places, he doesn't examine the possibility. He is telling you what it is. And we know that from the highest to the lowest, from the subtlest to the grossest, everything is involved in each other. Like I keep repeating, like a Russian doll. Okay, the largest and the grossest contains all the other Russian dolls in miniature form. Okay, so the divine is there in matter, and in life and mind, everything is there involved in it. Is slowly opening out, like a jack in the box. It is coming out, and the highest contains the possibility of matter. Matter contains the possibility of the divine. This is what he would say very clearly, but here he is using logic and trying to find out the cause of this physical world where opposites are there. So, then he says, since there would be no contradiction of the basic nature of things, an omnipotent mind could easily infuse something of itself in his creature. One difficulty remains. Now, I have got this theory of consciousness, mind and will producing the universe and itself becoming conscious at a certain stage. But there is a difficulty in my explanation. So what's that difficulty? One difficulty remains. It is the arbitrary nature of the creation, the incomprehensibility of its purpose, the crude meaninglessness of its law of unnecessary ignorance, strife and suffering. It's ending without a denouement or an issue. So he's saying, okay, the divine is created matter and is creating beautiful forms full of beauty, full of variation, full of variety and all. But why should suffering come into it? Why is it not possible that this divine would have created beautiful forms right from the beginning? Okay? This is something that I cannot understand, he's saying. It's possible. Then he says, and what are the objections? Why should there be, if it's a divine consciousness which is producing, okay, why should there be this unnecessary ignorance? It would have been otherwise. Strife. There is so much of struggle and strife, suffering, and it's ending without a denouement or an issue. Where is the world going? It's going on, it is evolving slowly, but there's no end to the evolution. What is the purpose of creation? Okay. This, when a man awakes to his own consciousness, this is even a child sometimes asks himself, from where have I come? From where have I come? What is the existence? I have suddenly come into this. What is the purpose of my existence? A child who is awake will ask himself these questions. So that's what is incomprehensibility of the purpose, the crude meaninglessness of its law of unnecessary ignorance, strife and suffering, its ending without a denouement. It's a French word, but it's also used in English. The unknotting, okay? In mystery stories, detective stories, you have a denouement. You have a problem. You don't know who has done the murder. Okay. At the end, there is denouement, and the mystery is revealed. It is he who is the murderer. Okay. So there is no end. There is no climax. That's what Swami is saying. It's going on endlessly. There is suffering and there is mystery. There is no end to it. Okay. The crude meaninglessness of its law of unnecessary ignorance, strife, and so. He is examining another possibility. Okay, is it a play? Could he be creating so many things out of his playfulness? Okay, but why this stamp of so many undivine elements and characters in the play of one whose nature must be supposed to be divine? We have started with the concept that consciousness is creating a divine consciousness. So why is he bringing in undivine things? That's what he is asking. Okay. To the suggestion, now we have that fantastic thing, to the suggestion that what we see worked out in the world is the thoughts of God, the retort can be made that God could well have had better thoughts, and the best thought of all would have been to refrain from the creation of an unhappy and unintelligible universe. Now, all theistic explanations of existence, starting from an extra cosmic deity, he has examined this whole question in the chapter, the delight of existence, the solution, the delight of existence, the problem, and then the delight of existence, the solution. All theories which start that there is a God outside the universe, creating the universe, will never be able to solve the problem of suffering. You have to necessarily think that the divine is himself involved in the cosmos and involved in the human being. There are some who don't accept that. How, if the divine is involved in matter and in human beings, how can there be so much of suffering and how can there be so much of perversion and ignorance? Not possible. Therefore, they end up with the Manichaean theory. Okay? Or you have Maya and you have the divine. All the things which you don't approve of are created by the devil. Okay? This is one philosophy which is there, money. Okay, he was a philosopher in 300 BC in Persia. So he said that also. And even the Christians have some of these ideas are there, that the ignorance and suffering is not created by God. Okay. So that we have to explain. It's only Advaita philosophy which says that yes, all this is also God. So you have to explain that. So any theory which starts from God standing outside the universe will never be able to solve the problem of suffering. They'll have to posit some other creator. Okay? So, all theistic explanations of existence, starting from an extra cosmic, standing outside the universe, stumble over this difficulty and can only evade it. It would disappear only if the creator were, even though exceeding the creation, yet immanent in it. So the divine is creating the universe but coming down into it. So the problem changes. The problem is not the divine creating suffering, but undergoing the suffering himself. The problem changes. It is like sadism and masochism. Okay, you can enjoy the suffering of others, or you are undergoing the suffering yourself. You have to explain that. Okay, he has done this in the delight of existence, the problem, and delight of existence, the solution. What that solution is discussed there. Here he is discussing something else. Okay, so all theistic explanations of existence, starting from an extra cosmic deity, remember that, stumble over this difficulty and can only evade it. It would disappear only if the Creator were, even though exceeding the creation, yet immanent in it, himself in some sort both the player and the play, and in an infinite, casting infinite possibilities into the form of an evolutionary cosmic order. So, I have to change my idea that it is a divine consciousness standing outside the universe and doing it. It has to be necessarily that this consciousness has to be there also in what he has created. And so you have to ultimately come to the conclusion that there are three levels. There is a transcendent divine, there is a cosmic divine, and there is an individual divine. Three levels. And all is the divine. If you start with that, it is possible to explain. But if you say who is standing only outside, it is impossible to explain why suffering. Because then God would be perverse. He is creating something and he is letting the creatures he has created suffer. And he is looking on and not interfering. They are suffering forever. So this is the problem.
Today only I was reading that does hell and heaven exist? So the mother says they exist and do not exist also. It depends on the psychological state of the person.
That's right. It depends at which level you are and your understanding. Okay? So
like in fact mother even explains or she shares an experience that she tried to pull someone out from that hell, but he was not willing to because he was so convinced of its presence and its...
That's right.
So he was not willing to come out of it even though mother was trying to pull him out of it.
There is a line in Savitri which says that exactly, that man is in love with his ignorance. The world is in love with its ignorance. It doesn't want to get out. Okay, it is attached to it. So on that hypothesis, and what is the hypothesis? We'll just see. The hypothesis is that consciousness has created the world, and after hiding itself in the what it has created, is working out like an artisan, shaping the dumb but responsive substance of matter. This is what he examined here. So now on that hypothesis, is there some other explanation or not, he is going to look at. It is only the Advaita philosophy that dares to say that what you see in the physical world also, suffering and all, is really the divine only. The only thing is, you are looking at, the divine has not created suffering. You are looking at the world through broken specks. And when you see through broken specks, you are not seeing the reality. You are seeing a broken reality. So, change your specks. And how do you do that? By purifying yourself. Okay? Then and that is the rising in consciousness. When you rise in consciousness from step by step by step, you are using different instruments of sight. And different instruments of sight will give you a different picture of the universe. That is the solution that he offers. So, the hypothesis, note the word hypothesis. He is giving a theory and examining the theory. Is it possible? He says, it is not possible if this consciousness that I have started with is outside the universe. It has to be necessarily in the universe.
Material scientists, they analyze and discover that this is the method. You said fixity and the freedom.
Yeah.
Fixity scientists have been able to
Fixity is a law. There is a law
which they have discovered, which the scientist discovers.
Yes.
The material side.
Yeah.
But that is like he's answering the how part, but not the why part.
That's right.
The why is, scientist has no method of telling us why it is so. He can tell it how it is.
Let's see
Is it the right conclusion? No, is it the right thinking of...
The right?
This is my perspective is right or wrong?
No, that's correct. What you're saying is all right. The why can be put in another way. Why is the dividing, as he has said, the best idea would have been for God not to create the world. So, the why is, why does the divine create the world when he himself has everything, is a problem which cannot be solved at our level. It is solved automatically at another level. Okay? Remember the gradation of knowledge. Okay? There is no knowledge in matter. In life, a little bit of knowledge is there in the animal. In man, there's a little bit more of knowledge, and it goes on. So, the animal has a restricted knowledge. It can't create the radio and the TV. Man can create the TV and the mobile, okay, but he cannot understand God. The yogi can understand something of God. So, this problem cannot be solved at this level.